welcome everybody to the HolloTalk podcast. This is Jetpack Nick, and I got my main man making this return to the HolloTalk podcast, Markus Rosa of Pivott Boxing Academy. Say what's up to people.
What's going on, man? Nice to get back at it and just be a guest again, man. What's going on?
No, I'm chilling, man, chilling. I just wanted to get you back on. I told the people that we was definitely gonna have you back on, and it's been a little minute since like we talked about Pivot and everything. So I wanted to bring you back on and kind of tap into the progress that you guys made over the last year.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you having me back, man. It was a good conversation last time. We've been doing well, man. We've been doing good by the people, so they've been taking care of us well. Even through all the COVID situations and everything like that, we continue to progress in a positive way, and we doing really well, man. We truly blessed. We can't really complain about anything. We making a name in the boxing world, and we doing right by our community, so everything's going well. Thank God.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to hear that. And like I said, I'll be following y'all closely, and I could definitely see that y'all been making some moves. So I'm glad to see that the moves is matching what you're telling me.
Yes, sir.
So what some of the goals you guys got set for the new year, 2022?
Well, what we're pretty much doing is we just what the goal has always been, just continuing to develop our amateur and pro stable. I got 2 active amateurs right now, Derek Moore and Nate Cruz.
Okay.
Just keeping them active, keeping
Shouts
them
out to
busy. Appreciate that. Yep, those my guys right there. Then I'm in the process of actually debuting another 2 guys that I'm working with, Isaiah Berry and Tito Velez. So I've been working with them guys, making sure that they're ready to go, because jumping into the amateurs is a big step. So you want to make sure that they're ready physically and mentally. You know what I mean? Ready for
Absolutely.
the big step. And continuing to develop our pros as well. We got 1 pro that's active right now that has a fight date, and that'd be Atifo Burlton. I'm actually one of his. I'm his assistant coach, and I just been working with him, man. Just learning my craft. So when it gets time for me to be a head trainer in the pros, which I've been doing for a while now, I've actually cornered over 40 professional fights. So I'm just taking it one step at a time and just getting everybody ready. So when it's time to perform, we execute how we want to.
For sure, man. I wish y'all nothing but the best. Like I know the work that y'all put on down at Pivot. So I'm definitely expecting to see some great results from your fighters, man.
I appreciate that, man. Likewise for you and your podcast. You know what I mean? I know it means a lot to you. Just like how the sport of boxing means a lot to us.
For sure.
And we actually got a lot going on. We won that prestigious award in Philly, boxing, the Briscoe Award. Tifo Burlton won Rookie of the Year, being 5-0 with 5 knockouts. And one of the head trainers at our gym just got nominated for the Pennsylvania Boxing Hall of Fame. So
Okay.
we definitely making a lot of noise. So that's just what it is, and we just gonna continue to build and make a name for ourselves in a positive light.
No, yeah, absolutely. And that's why I bring you on the pod, bro, today. Not just because you're my man, but y'all really doing some great things. And I want to shed light on that. People shed light on a lot of negativity and things like that. But I see you really putting in some real good work. And we got to spotlight it and put a highlight on it. So here you are.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that.
Sure.
It's good to get some recognition sometimes.
Yeah, it's my job to make you look good, man.
It's good to know we doing something right. You know what I mean?
No, for sure, man. But so I kind of want to talk to you about just the psychology of being a boxing trainer, right? Like generally we don't really hear too much about what goes on with you guys. Like we always hear about the fighter and what the fighter goes through and things like that. And I just think it'd be interesting to kind of get an inside look on what you guys go through and what kind of goes through your mind, trying to get your fighter ready for a fight, keeping your fighter safe and guiding your fighter to victory.
Well, that's a good question, because a lot of people always talk about what the fighter goes through, but a lot of people don't understand what actually goes through a trainer's mind, and what a trainer goes through. You know what I mean? It's a huge responsibility. You know what I mean? Your fighter puts all their trust into you. They put a lot of stock into what you teach them. You know what I mean? And they really take the time to trust that what you're telling them is going to get them on the road to success. So you really have to be very calculated with how you move with a fighter, because one miscalculation could cost a fighter his career or
Right.
even his life. You know what I'm saying? So my mentality when I'm going into the gym is that I make them as well rounded as possible. Now, can I teach a fight? Can a fighter learn everything? Can they be good at every aspect of boxing? No. What a trainer has to do is take the abilities that God has given them and make them work to their best benefit. Like I have a fighter, Nate Cruz. He's a shorter, stocky kid, short arms, but he has great power. He has a lot of will, and he's very aggressive. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but those three great and he has great conditioning. He's in great shape. So I have to use those abilities that he has that God has given him and maximize them to the best of my ability. Derek Moore is actually the opposite. He's a slick, good reflexes, rangy fighter, and he's actually pretty tall for his weight class because he fights at 125, 132, and he's like my height, 5'9",
Okay.
5'10". So I can't teach Derek the things that I teach Nate. They're two completely different fighters. So you have to move them differently. You know what I'm saying? I can't teach Nate to be the rangy, slick outboxer because that's not who he
Right.
is. He doesn't have the rangy abilities that Derek has, and vice versa. I can't teach Derek how to be an inside slick. An inside aggressive power puncher because he doesn't have those qualities that Nate has. So that's one thing. And then another thing, my main goal is to make sure that a fighter is healthy coming into the ring and making sure that they make it back home to their families
Right.
when the fight is over. That's the main objective. A lot of people always talk about the win, but I would take a loss with a fighter still in great health rather than having a fighter have a win and then be absolutely damaged to a point where they're not the same when they come back to their family. You know what I'm saying? And that's just
Right.
the reality. Health is my priority. The win comes second. Then everything else falls in line afterwards. I want to win just as bad as everybody else, but not at the cost of somebody's health in a detrimental way. You know what I mean? So that's pretty much my philosophies on boxing and just how I approach it mentally.
No, yeah, and the reason I asked that question too is because like I know like you competed, right? As a boxer, you
Yeah,
competed.
I had my little fun before my little when my health issues took over. You know what I mean? So I just had
Yeah.
to go in a different lane. Yeah.
Yeah, so you know, being a competitor, being inside the ring, knowing what it feels like, just kind of knowing that side, and then transitioning to the trainer side of things. I was trying to figure out what your philosophy was, because I'm pretty sure it's different than somebody who wasn't in the ring, who wasn't a boxer, and just being a boxing trainer. It's far different than you being a competitor, or being a former competitor and now being a boxing trainer. Like when you train your guy, you get him in the ring, make sure he's good, safe and sound, healthy and everything. That's number one priority, like you just said. But like when it comes to it, you know, do your fighter instincts kick in as a trainer? Like, you see your guy, he's in trouble, you think he can kind of, get himself out by fighting out, or do you just immediately jump in and say, forget all that. I got to protect this guy, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Well, fortunately, the great thing about me is I've always been good at separating the two. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because now if I was one of those guys that was bitter that my health set me back on the shelf and I had no choice but to turn into a trainer, um, maybe I would struggle with the idea of separating the fighter mentality from the trainer's mentality, and then I would be one of those guys that's trying to live through my fighter.
Right.
Fortunately, I've been turning pro wasn't something that was really in my long-term goals. What I initially planned on doing before becoming a trainer was becoming a boxing manager because I wanted to go in the business.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to get that experience under my belt so I could say I did this. You know what I'm saying? And I could get that respect from my peers. But fortunately, when the health thing happened, I was upset. You know what I mean? I did struggle with uh, depression for a little while. But as I got older, I actually fell in love with the idea of training people. So I became content with that role change. You know what I'm saying? I
Right.
actually enjoy the training part, training people and developing a fighter more than me actually being in there myself. So it's really a blessing in disguise. Um, I never really had trouble with separating the trainer from the fighter. You know what I mean? Because the fighter mentality in me is going to live forever. It doesn't go away. But I've been good at taming it. You know what I mean? I know how to separate the two. So I
Yeah.
never really had an issue with that. I always, if I'm not the one that's in there, fighting and competing, then I'm not going to bring that mentality to the table. You know what I mean? As soon as my fighter's in there and I'm training them, it's strictly the trainer's mentality, and I got to do whatever's in the best benefit of my fighter. So that's just what it is. I never had trouble with that.
No, yeah, and like I think that that's like a great skill to have. Not many people can kind of separate, being a former competitor to, just being a coach or a trainer or whatever the role is for that person. But the fact that able to keep in mind that safety and health is most important, for your guys. That's extremely important, especially with the trust that you got to have with trainer and fighter. I think that having that skill that allows that trust to be easily bonded.
Right, and I think like a lot of trainers struggle with the change because they lack that mental discipline. They lack that. All right, man, I'm not the fighter no more, so let me just fall back on this whole mentality. Um, and a lot of trainers just feel like they have to be that way. For me personally, they feel like they have to have that fighter mentality when they're a trainer, which doesn't necessarily make sense to me because why would you want to have a fighter's mentality when you're not the one fighting? You know what I
Right.
mean? So I keep it strictly. I stay locked in on that mind frame, and I just take it from there. If I'm not the one fighting, there's no need for me to have that fighter's mentality.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this. So do you feel as though that for a fighter to reach the pinnacle of the sport that they have to have top level training, or do you think that sometimes the fighter can kind of just get through on basic average training but just have phenomenal physical natural ability?
Well, what I'm gonna say is, if you want to be a top pro, you gotta have a great team, not necessarily a great trainer, because there are fighters that I've seen, especially recently, that have had average trainers and just gotten away with just natural ability, but then had a great team, a great management, or a great matchmaking, or a great promoter behind them. Like I'm gonna say Teofimo Lopez. Teofimo Lopez, real talented kid, just gifted, and has won a lot of fights just off of natural ability. Like you could just see it. But he doesn't have the greatest. He doesn't have the best training. Like his father never boxed before, which there are great trainers that never boxed before. I don't want to make that sound that way. But
Right.
even when he's given the corner instructions and just how the way that he goes about his training, you could tell that he doesn't have the best training. That's why TFimo always trying to hire some type of outside trainer to help him on the side, because he knows that his dad isn't capable of taking him to that next level from a training aspect. But because he has Bob Arum and he has money backing him and a great support system around him from a business aspect, he's able to thrive. Danny Garcia from Philadelphia, his dad is not a great trainer. He's not. You know what I mean? He doesn't really come from a boxing background. Um, and he gives terrible ring instructions. That's just what it is. And you could look at it from his last fight against Earl Spence. Um, he's trying to telling somebody to do something is not teaching them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could tell somebody, throw punches, just let your just throw, just knock his ass out, throw punches. But I could tell anybody to do that, but as a trainer, you have to tell them how to do it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I could tell somebody uh, skip a rock across a lake, and they're not able to do it. But if I'm able to teach them how to do it, how to throw the rock, then I will have a better chance of seeing them succeed. You know what I'm saying? But because Danny he has terrible training, but because he's with Al Heyman and before that he was with Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, and he just had great matchmaking and great management, he was able to thrive. So in answer to that, you don't necessarily have to have great training to get to the top, but you do need to have some type of great support system, a team backing you from a business aspect at least.
Yeah, just like seeing a lot of fighters, past, present, or whatever, I think that having the team was very important. Like Mike Tyson is the first person that comes to mind. Seeing Mike when he had the right team around him, he was the world heavyweight champion at 20 years old. And then as soon as everybody left, he was done at 23, like basically, and then he came back, won the title a couple more times, but he was never the Mike Tyson when he had Cus D'Amato and and everybody else that was a part of his team, Jim Jacobson, everybody like that. So, I definitely can see that being a major thing that you need. But shouts out to Teofimo. I mean, you being able to become the undisputed champion of the world at your weight class without the right training and everything, like that's a testament, by itself.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
Beat the top dog.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so he got something good going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, or maybe it was just his day. Who knows? But I don't think you get that far by mistake. So, I never take that away from anybody. It takes a lot of courage to step your foot in that ring and throw punches, whether you did by yourself in the gym or in front of 50, 100,000 people.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So, all right, so let's kind of take a step away from that a little bit, though. Let's kind of get into some fun shit. So,
right,
so we was talking on the record, and we was talking about some top fives, So I want you to kind of put your top five on the record and let the people know who's your favorite top five, and then we'll get into who's the greatest top five to you, current and all time. You can start wherever you want to start.
I'm gonna start with the favorites.
Okay.
Everybody that knows me know my favorite fighter of all time has always been Tito Trinidad.
Yes, sir.
Tito Trinidad always been my favorite fighter. I think it was because just how exciting it was for everybody in my house to sit down and just watch a Tito Trinidad fight. It just sparks the nostalgia. You know what I mean? From my childhood. You know what I mean? And it was like every time he won a fight, it was like a parade in my neighborhood. You know what I mean? And the happiness that he brought to my house was just something that hasn't been replaceable since. You know what I mean? So Tito Trinidad, and just like the amazing performances he put on and just having such a great resume and what he was able to accomplish and 45 fights that he had.
Yeah.
It's truly amazing, man. Like, and he was just truly incredible and just something that we haven't really seen much of since he decided to retire. So Tito Trinidad, number one all time. Number two, James Lights Out Tony. I always enjoy James Toney, not because that he used to talk a lot of trash. He was a great trash talker.
He's a defensive wizard.
Yeah, and the thing is, he was like the first person I saw with the shoulder roll that made it offensive. Now Floyd had a shoulder roll, but it was from a strictly defensive perspective. You know what I mean? Like he did it strictly for defensive purposes. Now James Toney actually used that shoulder roll to get off his offense. You know what I mean? So it was the same concept, but just used for a different purpose. James Toney, he walked it like he talked it. He had no problem talking and backing it up. He beat some great fighters. He lost to some great fighters, but the thing is, he fought them all. And he's truly underrated, man. I think he started at middleweight and ended up winning a world title.
Yeah.
At heavyweight. He beat Evander Holyfield. Right? It was an older Evander Holyfield. It wasn't a prime Evander Holyfield, but how many people do you know that come from middleweight that's able to beat an Evander Holyfield, period?
Right.
As big and strong as that man was throughout his whole career. James Toney was truly incredible. My third one, Andre Ward. Andre Ward always been one of my favorite fighters. I was telling you off the record, it's been so hard to try to meet this guy. Like I done met him all. I met Roy Jones, Tito Trinidad. I haven't met James Toney, but that's because he be staying on the West Coast a lot. I met Lennox Lewis, Sean Porter, Danny Garcia. I done met a lot of guys, Paulie Malignaggi, whoever you want to name. I met a lot of people. I even ran into Floyd. I have not been able to run to Andre Ward, but he's done some great things in a small, because he had a short career, only 32 fights. But within those 32 fights, he has a lot of quality wins.
Yes.
Like when he was at 168, he completely dominated that division. He almost became undisputed, but I don't know if Lucian Butte had the last belt and refused to fight Andre Ward. So everybody pretty much acknowledged Andre Ward as the champion in that weight class, as the man. You know what I mean? Great wins over Edison Miranda, Mikel Kessler, Carl Froch, Chad Dawson when he was at his peak. He had some great wins, man. He even fought it wasn't Lucian. It was his name's slipping right now, but when he was in the Super 6 tournament, he completely dominated. You know what I mean? And he did his thing. Now, he was so dominant at 168, the HBO actually did their best to force him to move up to 175 to fight Sergey Kovalev. So he does a deal with HBO, moves up to 175, has this iffy win against Sergey Kovalev the first fight. I actually thought that he won because he took over the championship rounds, the middle of the championship rounds, in my opinion. But Kovalev had a fast start, was able to give Andre Ward a knockdown. But nonetheless, he went against, he faced some adversity and got the win. Then in the second fight, he left no doubt and then rode off into the sunset. So he became unified. He actually had 3 belts at light heavy too. But then Adonis Stevenson refused to fight Andre Ward, so he wasn't able to do nothing. So you know what I mean? He wasn't able to get that undisputed belt. And plus, I think he was already done because of him being burnt out from injuries and dealing with a lot of long layoffs with contract disputes from his promoter and all that. So Andre Ward, very great career, 32 fights, but his resume is better than a lot of guys who have 40 plus fights, 50 plus fights. You could put up his resume with a lot of different people. That's really what makes fighters my favorite. Like, who did you fight? Who did you beat? And how did you fare? Like, you know what I mean? Did you really? Fourth one, Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis. I like Lennox Lewis because he wasn't the most exciting fighter. He wasn't like he wasn't like the biggest household name, but he really took on top guys. Like when you look at his resume, he beat Evander Holyfield. He got Mike Tyson under his belt. He got even the both losses that he lost to Hakeem Rahman, he lost to Oliver McCall. He avenged both of his losses by knockout too. He knocked out both of them. He fought David Tua. He fought Tommy Morrison. I could really, if I was to look through that list, I'm sure I could find a lot of Razor Reddick, Frank Bruno,
a lot of former champions.
Yeah, a lot of great guys. Like he really fought a lot of top guys, and he went off into the sunset fighting Vitaly Klitschko, who went on to run the division for a decade after that.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So Lennox Lewis really beat some real quality opposition. I think he's one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. Top. He got to be between top 3 and top 5 in my opinion. And that's saying a lot because the heavyweight division has had some great champions in the past.
Absolutely.
And with number 5, I'm gonna go with Wilfred Benitez. I'm not gonna say too much about him. I think the accolade speaks for itself.
Oh,
youngest
absolutely.
world champion ever.
17.
Youngest 17 years old. He won a world title. They still have not been able to break that record. Was a great champion. Could literally stand right in front of you and you couldn't touch him. That's why he called him the radar, because they said he could see those punches coming from a mile away.
Hand speed was impeccable.
Of course, solid power too. He didn't have to move his feet to be elusive defensively. You know what I mean? He could literally stand right in front of you and pick you off and make you miss and make you pay. Had some great wins under his belt, and I guess just him being from Puerto Rico and me being Puerto Rican, I could identify with him on a different level than most people. So that's my top 5 favorite right there. But it does change periodically. So next time we might do an interview, I might have a completely different list. So
No, the Wilfred Benitez one that was an interesting one. That he's kind of like a fan favorite. You know, like people don't know too much about him because he fought in that time period when Hagler, Hearns, and Leonard and Duran was kind of running everything. So he gets lost in the shuffle. Him, Wilfredo Lopez, Aaron Pryor, those kind of guys they get lost in the shuffle. All great fighters, but they just didn't have the name recognition as those other 4 guys did.
yeah, unfortunately, yeah. Aaron Pryor was a monster too.
Yeah. Talk about hand speed. Yeah.
Sugar Ray Leonard ain't want no smoke with Aaron Pryor at all. He stood up on that. He stood up on that press conference thing. He said, He told him, he said, "I never fight you. Never fight." And I think he beat. He beat Hearns in the amateurs. He beat somebody. They knew him for sure. They didn't want to fight that dude though. But he became a victim of drug addiction. So unfortunately, he didn't turn out who he was supposed to be.
No, yeah, well, all those guys were great champions, though. That's a solid 5, though. I ain't gonna hold you. Let me see. Look, let me see if I can match your 5. So first things first. Tito is in my top 5, also. Tito is definitely in my top 5 favorite fighters of all time. I don't really got him like I'm not gonna rank them, but I'm gonna just say 5. So Tito, Roy Jones. Roy Jones is in my top 5. He's also.
I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say this about Roy. If Roy, oh man, he's the most gifted fighter I've ever seen.
Easily,
he's the most athletic fighter I probably ever seen. Probably the most gifted fighter I ever seen. Period.
Easily.
And what tarnished his career is what he did in the later half after he lost to Antonio Tarver. Yeah, that's the only thing. But besides,
don't worry about that part.
Yeah, of course, because the real know what's up. You know what I mean? He actually beat Tito.
Yeah.
But if he would have retired after he beat John Ruiz, he
beat Tarver though. After he beat Tarver after that too. It's like he could have retired after that one.
But he was already looking shaky in that.
No, for sure. Right, it was a close fight, but I would have retired after that.
I think if I was to go back in time and change something, I would have had Roy retire right after he beat John Ruiz. I think he would have went down as the greatest. I think he would have went down as the greatest fighter of all time.
Right?
If he would have just retired. Yes, ever. If he would have just went out like that. Because he only had one loss, and that was a bullshit loss.
Which he, like you said,
that was kind of his fault. But but Griffin sold that. Like he wasn't really hurt. He was like, "Oh, he hit me while I was down. Let me just stay out.
Let me go get this win real quick." Yeah.
So,
I ain't gonna hold you. To me, like, and the way that I do like greatest of all time or like best ever, I do it like when you was at the peak of your powers. Was anybody better than you? And to me, Roy Jones is the best of all time. Like, and some people might dispute this, and like, I'm talking to a real boxing guy too. So,
not me.
At the peak of their powers, there was nobody better than Roy Jones Jr. And I don't even want to go as far as to say it wasn't close, but it kind of wasn't close.
There was some great fighters, but Roy was just something different.
He's an alien.
The hand speed, the power, his reflexes, his twitch muscles, they was different. It was just otherworldly. Like my dad was never a fan of Roy, but my dad always said, like, prime for prime, he don't know who would have beat Roy.
That's what I'm saying. And he's kind of in the perfect spot. He's fighting at, like, what would you say Roy's prime was at 168 probably?
When he was, I think his prime was when he was fighting, like when he beat James Toney.
So about 160.
160, 168. Because he just looked like I think all that was his prime. I think until John Ruiz, that was his prime.
All right, so
Like
so
until
then there we
after John
go.
Ruiz, that was like all his prime. Like he reigned that long.
Yeah.
But when he avenged that loss against Montel Griffin, he beat Bernard.
Yeah, he did.
He beat, and that was a good ass fight.
Yeah, it
that was
was
actually close. That was competitive.
very close fight.
James Toney, that was a competitive fight too. But when he broke Virgil Hill ribs,
hands behind him. Dang, he did a lot of crazy stuff, man.
They said he would play They said he played a full basketball game. They said he played a full regulation NBA basketball game. Then dressed up, fought, knocked dude out. They said Roy was like the closest thing to Superman.
Yeah, listen.
In boxing, and I believe it. That dude was incredible, man. I don't think they'll ever have a guy like Roy again. They try to say there's somebody that's looking like him, but we don't know yet. There's somebody looking like him, but we don't know yet.
Nah, listen, man.
I'm gonna just leave it like that. And he from Philly. He's looking a lot like Roy.
I'm rolling with you. No, but Roy, man, like I can't even explain it. Like you just had to see it to believe it. Like
he got the best highlight reel I've ever
seen. Easily.
Like
there's
some great highlight reels out there.
Roy has the best by far.
I watch his highlight reels regularly.
You know, like
they
Roy,
amaze me every time.
Roy had okay, so you know, for people who don't know, Tito is known for his left hook, right? Like yes. that's his signature punch. Roy Jones Jr. has a better left hook than Tito to me. He might have
I think he had a flash year.
He might have the best left hook. Year.
But this is the thing. Roy was so fucking gifted. He rarely threw a jab.
But that's my point. Like,
but Roy,
what do you do with that?
Never needed jab. The jab is the most important punch in boxing for those who don't know, because it dictates the distance. It dictates the tempo of the fight.
The pace.
You got a good jab, you could win a fight off a jab alone. I've seen it happen. Roy was so gifted, like just as a fighter. He rarely ever used a jab. Rarely. Go watch a prime Roy fight and count how many jabs he throw. I bet
you might be at zero. Yeah.
He would just lead with his hook.
And then Roy has, well, okay, so to me, Roy has 3 of the best punches like in a boxer's repertoire ever. So his straight is probably the greatest straight of all time to me.
He got some great. I don't know. I think Tommy Hearns got that.
Yeah, well, all right. I'm listening. I'm not disputing that at all. I'm just going based off of what I was looking at.
It's Roy we talking about though. So yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong.
Roy straight right hand, his left hook, and then I like to call it like a uppercut. It's like a hook uppercut.
That's called in Philly we call it a 45. So it's like a hybrid. It looks like an uppercut and a hook at the same time.
That shit might be the best punch of all time to me. That's the best punch of all time. Like
a lot of people call that a left hook. It's not really a hook.
It's not a hook at all.
Thrown from up here. He's throwing it from right here.
He throw it from like under here.
Yeah, it's called a 45. In Philly, we call that a 45. But that's pretty much like a hybrid.
Yeah, well, whatever you call it, that shit the best punch I ever seen.
That shit was unstoppable. When he hit Griffin with.
Yeah. There you go.
That shit was incredible.
Yeah, man. Roy is he's in my top 5 favorites, and he's my number 1 best of all time. Number 3, Mike Tyson. You know, for all the reasons you would expect, you know.
Oh yeah, we don't got.
That's what I'm saying. We ain't got going.
You ain't even got no boxing and no Mike.
For all the reasons you would expect, Mike is in my all-time list. Number four. Rest in peace, man, to marvelous Marvin Hagler. He's in my top 5 as well. Now, to me, this is just to me. Marvin Hagler, if he's not the most dominant champion at his weight class, he's top 2, top 3. You know, when he was the middleweight champion of the world, he reigned over for about 8 years, I believe. You know, and he was doing it in spectacular fashion. And like, you know, we always talk about, you know, conditioning and toughness. There was nobody that was more well conditioned or tougher than Marvelous Marvin Hagler, to me.
It's a fact. It's a fact.
You know, so
he's definitely his mentality was different, man. Like there's literally like videos of him running outside in the winter and just screaming, "War,
yeah, mm-hmm.
war!" So when you got that kind of mentality, man, it's like the bed already halfway won. You know what I mean? He wasn't like the most technically sound boxer ever either. He could fight from both stances.
Which was interesting.
But he wasn't the fastest dude. He had some power, but he wasn't like a Julian Jackson or a Wilder one jump puts you to sleep type thing. But he used to break people, man, with the mental pressure.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it really looked like when he fought Tommy Hearns for like he hurt him.
Yeah.
He hurt him with the punch. But when Tommy fell, it looked like it was just pure exhaustion. Like, God damn,
and drag you through the mud, man.
Yeah, like completely break you psychologically. Like that's how Sean Porter, not on a Marvin Hagler level, but I've seen Sean Porter make it to the top and win several world titles.
Yeah,
not from outboxing you, not from really beating you up physically, but draining you from a mental aspect. Like that pressure, it burst pipes, man. Marvin was great at that.
Yeah, man, he's like just his reign of terror. Like it was almost second to none, if not second to none. You know, just the way he dominated a lot of those big name fighters he beat. You know, and you know we always point to the you know the Sugar Ray Leonard fight, which to me I think he still won to this day. But you know the record goes to show that he lost that fight. I'll put that in, but he lost that fight. But you know. It is what it is. Shouts out to Sugar Ray though. I like Sugar Ray a lot.
He was one of very few that when he walked away from the sport, he really walked away.
Yeah.
A lot of these fighters be fronting, they like, man, I'm done, and then he come back. He never came back. He actually went to Italy and became an actor. A lot of people don't know that. He's in a lot of those movies over there. Actually was quite successful at what he did.
Fact. Yeah, man. Shouts out to Marvelous Marvin Hagler, man. You know, I honestly don't think he get mentioned enough. So, you know, whenever a boxing conversation comes up, I always like to, you know, drop his name in the conversation, you know, just for out of respect alone, let alone what he did in the ring, you know.
As he should, he's a legend.
Yeah. He should. And then the fifth spot. The fifth spot's always interesting to me. Because, you know, like, I of course, I could always go Ali. You know, nobody take a second look at that. But I like to say that Manny Pacquiao is my fifth. I just really like Pacquiao a lot. You know, some people are kind of indifferent about Pacquiao for, you know, multiple reasons or whatever. But when Pacquiao was, you know, doing what he was doing at the highest level, he was doing it. You know, it wasn't nobody else that was better outside of Floyd Mayweather, and even then, we don't know if he was better than Pacquiao because he didn't fight when they both were in their prime. So,
right. But what I'm gonna say is that wasn't Floyd's fault.
No, right. I agree with you.
Floyd's fault. There was a lot of when you really dissect it, it was just it was them being on two different promotional type of times, you know what I mean? Because Floyd had reached out, and then there was some things that they couldn't get past, like drug testing and stuff like that. Pacquiao felt like Floyd was trying to drain him, and Floyd felt like Pacquiao was a dirty fighter because he went from 105 to 154 and didn't lose power. And that's all debatable. Pacquiao never failed a test, so I'm not going to necessarily call him a cheater. It is kind of iffy, but at his peak, like when he beat Margarito, when he knocked out Ricky Hatton, he destroyed Margarito. Margarito, his eye was never recovered after that. He broke his orbital. He was never the same. That's how Cotto won that fight. He re-broke the orbital. Even when Pacquiao destroyed Cotto,
Yeah, that was
He was on. He
that was a
dropped
tough
Shane
one.
Mosley. Like, who the hell dropped Shane Mosley? Like, nobody was dropping Shane Mosley, and well, his streak was scary, man. Like, it was very scary. And his longevity was amazing too, because even in his 40s, he was able to beat a Broner. He was able, well, everybody beat Broner, but you know what I mean. A
I
young
got you.
dude, Broner. He beat an undefeated Keith Thurman.
Yeah.
And had a good competitive fight even in his last fight against Ugas.
Mm-hmm.
He lost to Ugas. He definitely looked old. His legs were shot.
All right.
But it was still a competitive fight. You know what I mean? So he did some great things, man. He's boxing's only ever eight division
world champ. Yeah.
And he has some great wins. Eric Morales, Marquez,
Mm-hmm.
Barrera,
Yeah.
Cotto. This dude
that list is crazy.
Undefeated Tim Bradley. People sleep on Tim Bradley.
Beat Oscar.
He beat Oscar. Yep. He made Oscar retire.
He beat Hatton.
Margarita. Yeah, Ricky Hatton. He beat everybody. He beat a lot of dudes, man. A lot of dudes. And even though he ended it on a loss, he ended his career strong. So,
yeah.
I'm not really a big fan of Manny Pacquiao, but I'm not a hater. You know what I'm saying? So I respect him.
No, yeah, and like I said, you know, it's mainly just off of like when I seen you at your peak, like who was really better than you, like and like I said, when it came to guys like Roy and Manny and Marvin Hagler, like I don't know, like I really can't name anybody that was better than those guys at that, you know, the peak of their powers. Now, you know, of course, like somebody like Mike, to me, Mike never had a prime, honestly, which is scary to me.
He didn't, but you could say that he peaked early.
He peaked early, yeah. But you
know, I think he didn't have the traditional prime that a lot of people are accustomed to seeing, because he had success at such a young age, and him becoming a victim to alcohol abuse and just he had a terrible childhood, man. He went through a lot of personal things that came back to haunt him. He just had a lot of demons, man. So he burnt out early, man, just from a mental aspect, and then his body started to deteriorate from all that partying and just not being disciplined. You know what I mean? So I think that was from Cuss. He never was the same after Cuss. And then when he had what was his name? He had the white dude that was with him after Ronnie something.
I feel like I know who you're talking about. I can't think of his name neither.
His name was it's something with an R.
I know who you're talking about though.
But yeah, he was doing all right with that dude, but Cuss had Mike hypnotized. Yeah. He had him so mentally locked in that it was like he was like I'm not gonna say unbeatable, because anybody could be beat.
Right.
But he was like in a zone that like a lot of people don't get to. You know, he felt like he was invincible. He was like the closest thing to that.
Yeah.
And then when Cuss passed away so early in Mike's career that he faded before we could really see who he was. Man.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mike was incredible, man.
No, yeah, but you know, I ain't gonna lie though. Like that's a solid top 5 for me.
It is. That's a great top 5. Man. It's a great top 5.
You know, and just for the record too, because you know we both said it. You know, Roy is you know prime for prime, probably number 1. I feel like more people should put respect on that like opinion, because like you say it, and just the casual fan be like what are you talking about? Like, now mind you, they might not have seen Roy, or they just they all they know is Floyd or whatever the case. But listen, man. Saying that Roy Jones Jr. is the best boxer of all time is not a crazy statement, no matter how crazy you think that shit is.
And then when you just look down his accolades, it speak for itself, man. This dude done beat Hall of Famers, like, with very limited fundamentals. people gotta take this into consideration. Roy did a lot of things wrong, but he was just so gifted and just it was so much of a natural fighter that he was able to get away with it. This man was the most gifted fighter I've ever seen.
Easily. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this question real quick though. Marv, I don't mean to cut you off, but
no.
Let's say Roy was technically sound, right? And he didn't rely on reflexes as much and his physical talent. Do you think he would have been as good as he was? Better, worse? What you think?
That's hard to say, but what I'm gonna say is, if he was fundamentally sound, like technically sound, then I don't think his career would have ended on such of a bad note as it did.
Right.
I think because he relied on his reflexes and his athleticism so much that when he got older and that faded away, he wasn't able to be as successful. You know what I mean? I think, and it showed in the B-Hop fight. He fought B-Hop when he was real young, and then when B-Hop wasn't as athletically gifted, but he was technically sound.
Yes, very technically sound.
So, and he was very skilled. He relied on his skills more than his athletic ability, and Roy was the opposite. So when they were both old as hell and they fought each other at the end of their careers, B-Hop prevailed because B-Hop had the skill set to fall back on, while Roy was still stuck in the Captain Hook style. So I'm gonna say that I'm sure that I'm not sure if he would have been better or worse in his peak, but I know that he would have been better off later in his career if he would have took the time to master the fundamentals.
So his longevity just would have been better, you think?
Yes, without a doubt. Because all right, my athleticism gone, but I still got my skill sets, and that's what I'm gonna rely on. Like Floyd did that. Pretty boy Floyd, he relied on his reflexes, he relied on his athleticism, and he had some pop coming from 130, 135. So he banked on that. But once he got older and his hands started to deteriorate, and he couldn't hurt them bigger dudes how he used to, he became the defensive, skillful, make them miss and counter set traps and all that stuff. Then he became the more tech, especially at 54. He was way too small. So like he used to weigh in 149, 150, and these dudes, and he will weigh in. He will come in the next day still 150, and then his opponent will weigh 153, 154, and then come in 170 the next day. So they have like 20-pound weight advantage on him.
Yeah.
So he had no choice but to rely on his skill set. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's pretty much what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting thing. I okay, so let's talk about that, right? Because we was talking about this on the record too. So this brings you back to Tito. We was talking about Tito and Cotto, two of Puerto Rico's finest, right? And Cotto was as dominant as anybody was at 140, right? The monster at 140, knocking everybody out. He moves up to 147. He has his success at 147. One of the best of all time at 147. But 140 was where he was the guy at, right? And we talk about Tito. Tito was
when he still had hair.
No, right, when he had the shortcut facts. But we was talking about Tito. Tito, was the most dominant at 147. He wound up moving up to 54, 60. And more, but 147 was where Tito was Tito, right?
Yes.
Yep. So we was talking on the record about like a catchweight, just like a what if, right? We was talking about Cotto at 140 versus Tito at 47. So who you rolling with?
Well, I feel like this is what I'm gonna say. Cotto is a monster at 140, right?
Yeah.
He was a great body puncher, explosive. Held his hands. He held his hand with his elbow was wide open, right? So he was susceptible to uppercuts, but he had a lot of heart. He was the full package, man. He wasn't defensively great, but he was good enough with the high guard and everything. Head movement. He was a solid, stocky, explosive puncher. Tito was a tall, rangy, technically sound boxer that could knock you out with either hand. It
Right.
was explosive. It was great conditioning. Cotto's conditioning was okay. Tito's conditioning was, I think, was up there with just about anybody conditioning wise. I've never seen that man tired, and he will bang with you for 12 rounds straight. Now, just thinking about it, I look at Cotto's career. Now, he did fight Margarito. Margarito did cheat.
Yeah.
And pretty much destroyed Cotto's career in a way, because Cotto wasn't the
Yeah, you're
same
never the
after
same
that.
after that.
Never the same. He's still good. Still won some world titles. Still did some historic things. Still beat some good people, but was never the same after that.
Right.
Now Margarito, like I was telling you, was a pressure. I'm gonna take. If I got to take two to give one, then that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, but he could do
just a
that though.
walking.
You know, he was 6'2", 6'3" at 47. He could do that.
Right. Now Tito wasn't too far off
Yeah, he's about
height wise,
5'11", 6 foot.
but they shared a similar style and search, seek, and destroy. Like, I'm gonna come get you. I'm not going. You know where I'm gonna be at, and I'm gonna walk you down. I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. But the difference was Tito was a smarter boxer, more defensively sound, and he did it in a smart. He was just an overall smarter fighter. So Tito would have had trouble with the height.
Cotto.
On top of that, Tito never really took punishment too well. He would bust up pretty easily, and Tito pretty much was never really busted up. He'd be swollen here and there, but not to the point where they'll be looking at.
Cotto definitely took a lot of damage, like to the face, like you know, like we was talking about, like when he fought Floyd, his face kind of looked crazy, and Floyd's not the puncher that Tito is, so
no, and he would get cut really easily and stuff like that, soft skin.
Yeah.
So just looking at how the way the styles mesh up, I really think Tito would have stopped Cotto. I think he would have stopped him probably mid to late rounds. Tito was just a different kind of puncher. And he took some big shots in his career too. You know what I mean? He wasn't he's fought big punches, you know what I mean? So it wouldn't have been nothing that he wouldn't have seen before. But I think it would have been a great fight, man. I really think that it would have been a great fight. Cotto could have possibly dropped Tito, because Tito really
balance was terrible.
Balance was terrible in the early rounds for some reason. And it's not far-fetched, because there's fighters less than Cotto that have dropped Tito. So it's not far-fetched that Cotto will get a knockdown. But I just think that Tito's pressure, I think his seek and destroy style will make Cotto uncomfortable, put Cotto on the back foot, and I don't think he'll be able to take Tito's power, his onslaught. So I think Tito would have stopped him.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So speaking of that, because I agree with you 100%. Like I think Tito would definitely win that fight. I think it would have been closer than you giving it credit, but I think Tito definitely would have stopped him for sure. Probably round 8, between 8 and 10.
Okay.
Between 8 and 10, I like Tito to stop him. But we was talking on the record too. We was talking about Tito's power. You said you had a story about that.
Yeah. So before my dad became like the one of the gym owners with me, and before he even got into boxing, because my dad boxed for a long time, but he got in a motorcycle accident. So he got in a real bad motorcycle accident, and my dad's still dealing with the effects of that motorcycle accident. That was before I was even born. So he had to stop boxing for a while, so he was upset with the sport. So my dad worked at Home Depot. He used to work at he was like LP, like loss preventions at Home Depot, and he used to work with this guy named Rodney Moore. Rodney Moore, his name was Rockin' Rodney Moore. He was a pro fighter that was from Philadelphia. And this was he told me a story about my dad was sitting in the cafeteria with him, and you know my dad, he's from Puerto Rico, so he knows about the guys that's coming up right now. He knew who was coming up at that time. This was like late 90s. So they in the lunchroom, And the guy tells my dad, yeah, man, I'm fighting this weekend, blah, blah, blah. I'm fighting this dude from this young up and coming kid from Puerto Rico. I think I could beat him. So my dad's like, who is it? Cause he knows all them dudes.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the dude says Felix Trinidad. And my dad's like, oh yeah, I heard of that dude, man. He's like, cause ever since Tito became pro, people were looking at him as the one. You know what I'm saying? It was like because of how the way he carried it in the amateurs. He was like a 3-time national champion. He got did dirty in the representing Puerto Rico, but he was a great amateur. He was like a standout amateur. So my dad was like, yo, I heard about that kid, man. You got to be careful. Like this dude he's looked at as like the next big thing coming out of Puerto Rico. And the dude was like, yeah, man, I got it. You know what I mean? Like real confident. So my dad actually bought tickets to go watch the fight. So my dad goes, watches the fight. Tito's boxing the dude, rocking Rodney Moore, and drops him with a body.
Yeah, you go.
Let me see. All right. So he drops Rodney with a body shot. Now, they think it's just a regular liver shot. Like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? He might get counted out. But when he tries to stand up, he falls over again. And he starts pointing at his hip area. Tito had hit this dude so hard to the body that he broke Rodney's hip bone with a body shot. So because of that, he had to retire from boxing just off that one punch because he wasn't able to maneuver how he used to. And it was just off of one body shot. The dude tried to get up and fell over again. He kept trying to get up and was falling over. Tito, with one body shot, was able to completely break that man's hip bone. You know how strong those bones are.
Right.
it just was able to completely just dish him out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's why we say you don't play boxing.
You don't. And then I ran into Rodney myself and he told me the story. He was like, he said, I never felt power like that. It was like every time he hit me, it like completely shook my body. And Tito was probably like 19 at the time they fought. 19 years old. So he said that, yeah, man, I did a couple more fights. And he said, I just couldn't do it no more after that because my hip was completely destroyed. It was never the same. He did a surgery, everything.
Jesus Christ.
That's what it was. You know what I mean? So that's just one story I heard of Tito. You know what I mean? I heard a story from B-Hop too.
If you could tell it.
Yeah, so I spoke with I used to go to Joe Hand boxing gym a lot because I had a fighter of mine that I used to spar with another pro that was in that gym, and that's where B-Hop used to train. B-Hop was always a nice dude, and even though I low-key felt some kind of way about him beating Tito, I always respected him because, you know, he's an all-time great. You know what I'm saying? So I asked him, I was like, how was the Tito fight, like, from a fighter perspective? And he said that he knew that he had to fight a perfect fight because Tito was knocking everybody out. He just knocked out William Joppy, and William Joppy was like one of the top guys at 160. So he said he was locked in that whole camp. And he said that no matter what, when he was fighting Tito, he never dropped that right hand. He said he always made sure that right hand was up real high because he knew that left hook was coming. Yeah. So he said that after he beat Tito or whatever, he said he goes to the back. They're taking his gloves off. No, they already took his gloves off in the ring. Now he's in the back. They're cutting his wraps off. Or whatever. And when he took his wraps off, his whole right hand was just covered with welts from the wrist, from the bottom of the wrist all the way up to the top of the knuckle. He said he had welts all over his hand from Tito punching
blocking that fucking left hand.
From blocking that left hook. He said he had welts and bruises all over his hand. He said it was like hard to rotate his wrist and all types of stuff. And there's somebody who beat Tito Trinidad and beat him easily. Yeah. You know what I mean? So it goes to show you how much of a big puncher he was. And even if you beat him, it came with a cost. You know what I'm saying? So
hell yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, I mean, shit, that's the price of the game, man. You know, like, I mean, shit, you could tell him better than I can. You don't get in this ring expecting to come out, like you like you went in.
Right. Yep. It's a fact.
Yeah, man. So who you like currently though? Like who you think is the guys currently? Like who would your top 5 be of the
My
current
top
fighters?
5 current. All right. Number 1, I'm gonna go with favorites.
Okay.
And I'll tell you who the best. My favorite fighter right now is David Benavidez. I like David Benavidez a lot. 168 dude, monster, combination puncher, fast hands. And he's just a straight killer, like killer. And I think I think you'll like him if you watch him too. He's a really, really.
No, yeah, I'm familiar. I'm familiar with Benavidez.
Yeah, that dude is a monster, and he's young as hell. He like my age, like 24, 25, and he's beating everybody they put in front of him, and like nobody wants to fight him. Shakur Stevenson, number 2. I like Shakur a lot. I think that he's gonna be pound for pound number 1 material within the next couple years. Jaron Ennis.
Yeah.
Number 3, I think that he's gonna be like this generation's Roy Jones. I really believe that he shows a lot of Roy. Is he Roy? No, but
no.
He shows
to
a lot
be fair,
of
nobody's Roy.
Yeah. It's not no insult or disrespect.
Yeah, not at all. Jaron's hard work though.
He looks like him when he does certain things. And he's just explosive as fuck. Could punch, could box, fast, elusive. He literally is the whole package. I think Boots is gonna take over. 47, 54, all that. I think he's gonna be really hard to beat, especially since how dedicated he is and how hard he works. I like Terrence Crawford a lot. I think Terrence Crawford, I do think that he was held back by his promoter a lot. I think he's supposed to be in a bigger I think he's supposed to be a lot higher up than what he's supposed to be right now. I think he should be a bigger star than what he was supposed to be. But because of how shady this boxing business is, I do think he was robbed out of a lot of great opportunities. So I just named 4. Let's go with I'm gonna just go with my guy. You call it bias or whatever, but I really think I think Atif O'Burlton is very special, man. I think he's a complete package. I've seen this dude run through 5, 6 guys, sparring partners, and these are professional fighters.
Mm-hmm.
He was a number 2 ranked light heavyweight in the country, an Olympic alternate. And I really thought he was robbed out of that opportunity to represent Team USA in the Olympics. And it's all on YouTube, so you can just look. A lot of international experience. He's something special, man. Like he's different. And it's not because he's a part of my team. I would say this if he lived in Sweden, you know what I'm saying? And I saw him, I would say the same thing. Truly, truly incredible, man. Just an amazing dude. And as long as he's focused and he's consistent, I really think, especially at 175, I think he'll be world champ within the next couple of years.
Okay. All right. Well, it sounds like there's somebody that the people need to keep their eyes on.
Yeah, they see him too. They see him.
For sure. I mean, we working with you, man. So I already know.
Man, I think he will be great wherever he's at. Honestly.
No, that's a testament to his ability. Yeah. Hey, well, I mean, as far as everything, I don't got nothing else. I mean, you anything you want to ask me, talk about at the end of this?
What you who's your favorite out of the young guns that's going on right now? Who do you think is gonna be the cream of the crop? Like, who you think is gonna rise to the top?
Across all weight divisions, or like one
yeah,
specific?
Like who you think is gonna be that guy? Like that guy.
To be honest with you, I would probably have to roll with Shakur Stevenson. Like Stevenson, like he's he has a total package. Like, for one, just skill wise, I think his skills are the most crisp out of all the guys, and
Mhm.
I do believe he is, one of the most disciplined out of all of them too. And then he's a baby, honestly. So he has so much to learn, and so much that he can add to his game that which isn't too much because he's already like one of those guys. But we talked a lot about skills being the thing that gets you through more than anything,
Mhm.
and he has the best skills out of all those guys to me.
I
So
agree.
that's who I would roll with.
Yeah, a lot of people say. I hear a lot of Devin Haney's.
I like
Devin,
Devin Haney too. I like him,
I
but
like
I
him,
like
but
Shakur though.
I think Shakur is a couple levels above him. I think Devin Haney, what makes him good is that he's rangy and he understands distance real well. I think that's what's going to carry him through the long run, him understanding distance, because not everybody has that thing mastered.
Yeah.
But I just think once they able to figure that out, or he gets in there with somebody who's able to like get rid of that, take that away from him, I think we're really gonna start to see how good he really is. Because I don't know. That's just my boxing idol. I don't know. I just think Shakur, and I think Shakur and Jaron Ennis, I think
Yeah,
they're
Boots
gonna
is
be,
he's one of those.
yeah. Even though I don't think he's gonna get a title shot anytime soon.
Probably not, but that's not nothing due to his ability.
Right. Have
But
you do you want to see Earl and Crawford? Are you a fan of that?
I am, only because the conversation stops at that point. It's whoever wins that is undoubtedly the best of that division, and to be honest, I think Bud is head and shoulders above everybody, but when you got somebody like Errol Spence in the win, like people make their picks and say somebody's
Right.
better than the other person, like we did with Floyd and Manny up until the point when they fought. But like I said, by that time it was too late, and you really couldn't gauge what it really was at that time. Whereas if they would have fought 6-8 years earlier, then you would have got a better scope of who was truly better. But they kind of got to fight, and they kind of got to fight now, because
Yeah, they gotta
if
get it
they
out the
keep putting
way.
it off, it's that conversation is gonna get, well, shit, they didn't fight, or if they fight later, like, oh, they should have fought earlier. But even if the fight doesn't happen, it's kind of clear to me that Bud is above the rest of the people in the weight class.
Yeah, I agree for sure. Before the car accident, I really gave Earl a great chance of beating Crawford. Um, but I don't know how it'll go now. I got to see how Earl does against Ugas,
Yeah,
because they're gonna fight in like March or April.
and Ugas is tough. It's very, very tough. You good?
I'm sorry, you said something?
No, you guys. I said Ugas is tough.
Oh, he is. He is. He's pretty good, but I just think Earl is probably a couple levels above him, and I think that I think he's gonna take over with his jab and just overall work rate. I think he's gonna get a decision against Ugas. I just think he's a little better than Ugas, and that'll be for 3 belts, so it's a meaningful fight.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
hopefully they could fight Terrence Crawford at the end of this year or like September around there. I would love to see that, man. Until
Yeah,
then, Canelo gonna keep taking over.
yeah. What you think about Canelo? I'm starting to get the idea that you're not that much of a Canelo fan.
No, I like Canelo. He's pretty good. But I do want to see him take the fights that will really. He's already legit. Like, he's beat
For sure.
amazing people. He just became undisputed at 168. That's something that Andre Ward wasn't able to do.
Hmm.
It is a weaker weight class since Andre Ward left, but
Yeah.
he get all the belts. That's something Andre Ward didn't do. And he's beat some legitimate guys like Caleb Plant. He's pretty good. You know what I mean? He beat Daniel Jacobs. And the other guys, like, I don't really put too much stock into these UK fighters like that. There's some exceptions, but Canelo is beating everybody how he's supposed to beat them. But there are some question marks out there that I do want him to answer. I do want to see him fight a Benavidez. I would like to see him fight Demetrius Andrade, Jamal Charlo. Like, these are fights that I would love to see. And if you're capable of beating these dudes, then it's just gonna raise your stock as a legend.
Right.
You know what I mean? The greatest Mexican fighter ever thing is still in the air. If you're able to beat them three, it might really solidify your spot there. You know what I'm saying? It's saying a lot. Because Mexico has a lot of great champions.
Julio Cesar Chavez.
Yeah, Chavez. You got there's a lot of them. You know what I mean? There's a lot of great Mexican champions. So if he's able to get those wins against them top dogs like that, then it'll really solidify his legacy for sure. But I like Canelo though. I don't like the positive drug test he had in the past, but ever since then he's been staying clean and been doing what he got to do. And he makes boxing exciting. So I enjoy it.
Who you got at number one pound for pound right now? You got Canelo at one or Bud or somebody else?
Man, I treat pound for pound based off of resume. So I think Canelo has the best resume in boxing right now. So I got Canelo number one. But if somebody was to say, "Oh, I got Terrence Crawford number one," I can't be mad at it. But I think Usyk should have a name in that spot too. Somebody was to put Usyk there, I wouldn't be mad because this is a guy who was undisputed at cruiserweight. Cruiserweight's not a popular division, but he's naturally a smaller dude. Then moves up to heavyweight and beats Anthony Joshua, who's a top dude at heavyweight, and beats him easy too. It wasn't like it was a war back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
He beat him easy. There was no debate on who won that fight. So he's undisputed at one weight class and only one belt from undisputed at heavyweight. So he's doing some great things, man. He's taking on all challenges, not ducking nobody. So you gotta respect it. You know what I mean? The European mind frame, they really do not care to fight no top dudes. They don't try to stall things or nothing. They go straight to the smoke. And I appreciate it. I appreciate that in a fighter, but I got Canelo number one right now.
Okay.
Best resume.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you on that. You know, I think Canelo's probably number one too, especially the way he's beating his opponents. You know, it's kind of hard not to put him at number one.
Right. Mm-hmm.
All right, so just another dream matchup real quick, and then this is probably my last one.
Okay.
So Canelo right now, because I would assume this like people would consider this as his prime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Canelo now versus Andre Ward in his prime. Who you like?
Oh man, I got I think Andre Ward will beat him. I think Andre Ward will beat him because Canelo, because what Andre Ward specialized in was taking away whatever you were best at. So if you had a good jab, he was going to take that from you. If you were a good body puncher, he was going to make sure you weren't in range to throw them body punches. If you had a good right hand, he's going to take it from you. So knowing Canelo, especially how he's been fighting lately, what he's been doing is putting pressure on you, getting you to the ropes and unleashing body shots until you will break down, and then he'll pick you apart from there. The problem with that is Andre Ward was such a great inside fighter and because Andre Ward was left-handed. He just fought from an orthodox stance. So his jab was so sharp and solid and accurate that I just think that it would have gave Canelo problems. And being that Canelo's such a smaller dude, I think that Andre Ward would have had and Andre Ward was like 6'1", solid dude. I think his inside work and him just making it a rugged, he liked to maul his opponents too. So I just think that he would have made Canelo uncomfortable, put him on the back foot. similar to how Triple G did, and just beat him up on the inside. I think, or he could have outboxed him because he had great feet too. I just think that Andre Ward was the more skilled, bigger dude, and he would have took his advantages and used them against Canelo. Andre Ward was a different kind of boxer. I think only special fighters would have been able to beat Andre Ward, like a Roy Jones,
Yeah,
or maybe a Calzaghe would have gave him a tough fight, or James Toney. Like, it would have to be somebody like that to give Andre Ward trouble. I don't think and Canelo is a great fighter. Don't get it messed up, but I don't think he would have been able to beat somebody like Andre Ward. No.
Okay. All right. Well, like I said, that's, I don't know, man. I think Andre Ward definitely would have prevailed. Like, I always try to favor the more skillful guys.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, what my preference is, with the exception of Roy Jones Jr.
Mm-hmm.
But, I'm always going with the guys that got the skill. So I definitely would have rolled with Andre on that too.
Right.
But yeah, man, that's all I got, man. We chopped it up. We talked some good shit, and I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything that you want to plug, shout out? Anybody you want to shout out? Anything? Any other questions?
Just shout out the Pivott Boxing Academy. We really been doing a great job at what we're doing, and just shout out to my fighters for being consistent and really taking time to master their craft. For them, I never say no because I just enjoy this. I'm an enthusiast, so whenever I get the chance to really talk about it, especially with somebody who's educated on boxing,
yeah,
I find it therapeutic. So I usually go to it. You know what I mean? So I appreciate you having me on, man.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. It's always a pleasure, man. It's all love, from this side to you.
Likewise.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. And, like I said, I always have fun talking to people who know what the fuck they talking about too. So,
right.
Man. But this was a great conversation, though, man. I wish you and everybody over at Pivot Boxing Academy the best of luck. You, your trainers, the fighters, everybody over there. And I promise I'm definitely gonna try to make a trip down there though, so I can see all y'all in person, see what y'all doing.
Yeah, you welcome whenever, man. You just you know what to do. You got my information.
Yeah, for sure.
You're welcome to come whenever. As a matter of fact, whenever we have a media day, I'm gonna make sure I invite you out so you can come experience what you got going on. We got a lot of great stuff going on, and I appreciate you with the good words. You know what I mean? I hope everything goes
absolutely,
well
man.
with your ventures as well. So
thank you, man. I appreciate it.
I'm always around. You know what I mean?
All right, well, I'm gonna get you out of here, man. Again, I want to say thank you, and I appreciate you for just talking to me. Had fun talking about something that we love, which is boxing, and I really really enjoyed this. But last but not least, I just want to give a shout out to the HolloTalk podcast listeners and supporters for supporting us through and through. And also supporting our guests. So make sure y'all go follow my guy Markus Rosa, and please go support Pivot Boxing Academy. All right, man. That's it, man. Peace and love, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it, man. You have a good day.
You too.